Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for our webinar on Microsoft Copilot for Business. So what it does, what it costs, and how you can use it safely. I'm your host, Alina Atkins, and I'm the Growth Marketing Manager here at Netranom. And I am so excited to be joined by our co-host, Elliot from PAX 8. I will let him introduce himself in just a moment. But before we get started, just a few quick housekeeping items. This webinar is going to be about 45 minutes long with a designated Q&A. So if you have any questions at all for Elliot or myself, feel free to put it in the Q&A chat function at the top of your screen, and we will get to them. I'll be looking at them throughout Elliot's presentation today, and I'll be asking him those questions. So anything that you have about Microsoft Copilot, feel free to put it in that Q&A chat, and we'll get to it accordingly. So Microsoft Copilot, I'm sure we have all heard of it and possibly even dabbled in it, right? But what actually is it? How much does it cost? What can it do? How can it make your business and you as an employer or as a manager, as a boss, as a CEO, more productive throughout your day? This is exactly what Elliot's going to discuss with us today. He's going to show us some examples on how to use Copilot in Outlook and Word, and how Copilot actually handles your business data and keeps your information secure, what Copilot costs and the licensing that's required, and just some common mistakes when you start using Copilot and how to avoid them. All right, if we are all set to go, Elliot, I'm going to go ahead and take it over to you.
No, thank you so much, and thanks for letting me be part of this event. Again, my name is Elliot Eliason. I am from PAX 8. If you're not familiar with PAX 8, we're here to support your partners like Netranom. Odds are, if you consume a Microsoft licensing in North America, which you do, you're either sourcing it from Microsoft or sourcing it from PAX 8. So, really excited to talk about this. I've been able to talk to individuals all across the country, and Copilot has been such a huge, important topic of conversation. I do have one favorite ask of you. This QR code up here, if you don't mind taking a screenshot of that and going into this form, I would really appreciate if you'd fill that out to give feedback to myself as well as Microsoft on how we did. This just really allows us to keep having these sessions and able to let the team here have some funding to make sure that they're able to keep doing this type of education. I'll have it at the end again, but again, just hoping that you guys can go and fill that out for us to make sure that we're able to continue to do this. My one ask on that one, and please give us some feedback on how we've done. But as she mentioned, I'm really here, one, to set the stage on, hey, how can I think about this as a business leader? Talk to a little bit about Copilot, what the options are, show a quick little bite, and I'll tell you, if anyone's interested, we have a lot longer sessions coming up, about an hour and a half. They're able to attend. One later in March is focused completely on nonprofits. So anyone's a nonprofit, there's some attention, directly to you, but hopefully it gives you a taste. And like I said, we can follow up with more individualized sessions or those larger, Copilot seminars that we're going to be going through and doing. But without further ado, what are we thinking about this AI transformation, right? A lot of times we keep thinking about the different tools, the technology that keeps getting thrown at everyone. We see all the different ads, but really what we're looking to do is how do we empower businesses and their employees, right? So we want to make sure you're increasing business value, you have positive business outcomes, and when you're investing in this technology, you're actually getting, cost optimization out of it, right? You want to make sure you're either becoming more efficient with it or it's helping you reduce risks in certain areas. And finally, something that I think gets overlooked quite a bit is, how can we help employees thrive? There's a number of different things out there about, the terms such as digital debt, which is all these emails, all the different Teams messages, all these different things which are, clogging up a person's day. How can you help minimize those small tasks I like to call pass the butter tasks, and help employees, feel better at their work, but also accomplish more revenue generating activities or activities that, hey, they really need to focus on that side. So why is AI awareness and adoption important, right? I will say on this one, I think sometimes we need to take some of Microsoft's statistics with a little bit of a grain of salt. I think 353% return on investment might be a little high, but even on that low end return on investment of 132%, there's definitely some value. And what I see with this tool is, unlike a lot of times where enterprise are really leading the charge on this side, I think SMBs have an advantage, right? If you're a small or medium business, you can make decisions a lot quicker on adoption of technologies, make sure that you're your headcount is enabled by this a little bit more, especially with people who are potentially wearing multiple hats inside your organization. Copilot can be a lot more enabling for those users and for your organization on this side. And what we've seen over these last 2 years is if you're not utilizing an AI tool, your employees certainly are, right? The statistics from 2024 were that over 70% of users inside of a company were using some sort of AI tool. That number is gotten almost to 90% at 86%. So if you don't have an AI use policy in place, people are going to be using whatever tools they come across, and some of those could potentially be using data that can be harmful to your organization. We had a partner in the United Kingdom who had someone go through this. They used outside AI tool. It sent out a spreadsheet of all different client information that it shouldn't have had access to, right? So those are the type of things we want to avoid. And if our employees are going to be using tools, let's use the tool that's the safest and the most effective for what you're looking to do inside your business. So again, we're looking to get the most return on investment. And inside your organization, let's think about, hey, what does that mean for us, right? So let's put those in 2 different categories. We have the personal productivity. So that is, Karen in HR, how can we make her job easier? She's able to spend more time. What kind of individual efficiencies can she find? For our marketing team that's looking at putting together presentations, clients' proposals, things that go out in the world, how can we make sure they have more creative time? How can we do this thing? That's one side of the equation on how we should calculate this. The other side of this, again, is this something we're looking as a revenue growth tool? Is this something we use to enable our sales? Are we able to optimize? And on that side, it's not reducing headcount. It's saying, hey, we only need to hire this X amount of more workers because of what we have, or we're able to actually get more from the workers we have internally because of what this tool is allowing us to do. And final one, again, is that digital debt and employee well-being on that side. The Microsoft statistics on this one, again, a little bit of grain of salt. When they launched this for their employees, 90% said they would be very upset if they lost this Copilot tool, right? Some even said they considered leaving the organization. Is that probably a little bit dramatic? Was Microsoft maybe looking at those results? Yes. But, on different studies, we've seen that holding true at a little bit lower of a percentage, but still employees, when they started to use this tool and are able to use it effectively, they find a lot of value. It's not they're scared of it. It's that, hey, this is helping me in these day-to-day tasks. So what can you do to prep, right? I think the first step is, what are your organization's goals to use AI, right? If we go out there and say, hey, we just want to become more efficient, we're going to have a tough time measuring that return on investment, right? I think it's identifying, either business processes in your organization or those who are straining your organization, saying, hey, how can we use this tool to help you? We're going to have a test case with you on this side, and make sure that this is something that's going to be valuable for rolling it out to other individuals. And again, that rolls right into the pain points, right, of what can you address, right? Once you've identified, hey, it takes us this long to put together a request for proposals, is there a way we can automate this? Or we have this form they have to fill out. I know for me on my side, I have to fill out forms for Microsoft all the time. Incredibly tedious, but they're incredibly repetitive at the same time. And it's something that I was able to automate for that. And that's brought down 8 hours of work down to about a couple hours of work on this side. So know that this AI tool is going to get you 80% of the way and help you get a little bit more effective. But again, what are these pain points for you? And then the middle one is having an honest assessment about your AI capabilities. If we have Gertrude in accounting who's 75 years old on the verge of retiring, I don't know if she's the right person to use AI tools, but finding people inside your organization who are, one, willing to be learners and willing to share what they've learned with the rest of the organization, but having that honest conversation about what is our capabilities with it. How you interact with this AI tool, how you prompt, is going to directly correlate the results you get back. So we want to make sure that on the user side, that's not where the failure point is. So honest conversation on that side, and I know we can offer training to help you guys level that up as well. The last two, they fall into the same category, right? Does your organization have a data strategy, and what is the infrastructure on that side? With anything, right? If we put in faulty parts into something we're assembling for a car, we're going to get bad results. We're going to have crashes. If we give a tool bad data and we don't have the infrastructure around it to support it, which is security, you're going to get bad results out. You're going to have results that are, the term that Microsoft hates but I use is work slop, right? Where bad information is coming and then someone has to go through and clean it up and actually take more time. So instead of getting that positive efficiencies, we're actually getting a negative efficiency. So again, what's our data strategy? Is our data cleanly? and how can we make sure that we put guardrails around this, right? And we'll talk more about some of those pitfalls of not having those data policies in place later, and why security is so important. But again, start thinking those conversations have internally. A great place, again, if you haven't already, is to start is creating that AI fair use policy, and then make sure, hey, what are our goals? What are our pain points? So this is Microsoft's AI vision, right? On this one, Microsoft thinks every user and there's an agent for every business process. This is where I understand their sentiment around this, and how I would think about this is there can be an agent or a co-pilot for every user, but it has to make sense, right? If we're going through and want to make sure we're spending the funds and spending the human capital of the hours going this, we need to make sure that more is coming back. I'm here to tell you there's going to be some users in your organization it doesn't make sense to have this license for, or it doesn't make sense to create agents for those business processes. So what we want to identify is really those best business process, those best users to get the most from this value. But again, Microsoft's vision on this makes sense in a sense that there is someone inside your organization that's going to get a lot of value from this. It's just making sure we find those right people and make sure we roll those licenses out most efficiently and effectively. But speaking of licenses, again, let's just think about Copilot. My dream job is to be someone who names things for Microsoft. They seem to name everything the same, which is a little bit tough when you're trying to go through and parse different things out. But how I think about Copilot, right, is the user interface for all different kind of AI, from those individual Copilot from M365 we talked about to very bespoke agents we'll talk about a little bit later on. But think about this just as you have your interface to interact with your current productivity tools, that this is the UI, this is the assistant for everything you're moving forward with when it comes to interacting with AI. First one I want to talk about is Microsoft Copilot Chat, right? You're going to see a lot of Microsoft Copilot with additional words at the end of this to see what's going on this side. But Microsoft Copilot Chat is something, if you're consuming Microsoft licensing, you have this today, right? It's something that's a free AI tool. It's powered by the latest model from ChatGPT, which is ChatGPT 5, and it's grounded in the web. Let me just pause, and when I say grounded, what do I mean, right? Think of grounding as what's the material that I'm using to get answers for you, right? So this one is using the internet. So it's a great place to start because there's no cost to you, but also it's going to allow me to start learning how to prompt. So again, if we look back earlier on, hey, what are my current AI capabilities? If you're saying it's lacking a little bit or we need some refinement, this is a great way to learn, right? It's a great way to go through, understand how do I prompt, how do I identify when I need to clean up something that I'm getting back as a result, and then how can I move forward with disseminating that information to my organization in an effective way. While this is not being used to train any models like ChatGPT or anything else, still highly recommend this is not something that you would share sensitive business data out, right? This would not be something where you would go through and say, hey, these are our revenue projections. Can you help me do this? There's other sections of this that you'll show you that will enable it. But again, this is more a place for training ground, for doing those fun different things to better understand how to use this tool. And again, if you have Microsoft licensing today, this is available to you. Go into your Microsoft browser, you'll be able to utilize this and be able to move forward. And we'll look at this a little bit in a second, and I'll show you some different kind of fun ways to get started. But that is the first of these offerings, right? Is this Microsoft Copilot Chat. And like we said, web connected, latest use of the language models, go through and make sure you have oversight because you already have the protections in place, right? But still, a little bit of those different guardrails. For the middle two sections, they're actually, from functionality standpoint, the same license. Both Copilot 365, Microsoft 365 Copilot and Microsoft 365 Copilot for Business, they give you the same functions and feature set. The top one is just designed for an enterprise organization. So if you're far past 300 users, that's the license that you're going to be going through, while the Microsoft Copilot Business is capped at 300. So for anyone who's a small medium business here today, that is going to be your champion SKU, right? And how I think about it is I really just need to get back $1 a day in productivity for it to make this worth my time, right? So, that's a dollar a day. I don't think you even get a coffee anymore. So a pretty low bar to get over, but there is also the cost of making sure that our people are trained, making sure they're using it in an effective and safe manner too. I will say there are also some really good promotions around Copilot for Business where we can bring this cost down even more. So if you're considering making that direction, talk to your team here. I can help support them on the back end to make sure you're getting this in the most cost-effective manner you can. But it can bring down the cost enough that I think it's really interesting to take advantage of this. So a lot of different options, but let's talk a little bit about Copilot for M365, right? This is a true, assistant for everything you're doing. If we think back from Microsoft productivity, as I said before, we're all thinking about, hey, we've been using Word, Outlook, Excel, all these different things for so long. And it's also grounded in your data. So again, the Microsoft Graph is everything you have inside of your organization. So your SharePoint data, things have been saved inside your OneDrive, things have been saved inside your email. This is where this is all pulling from, right? So this is not just the internet. This is pulling from your data. Again, why it's so important that data is cleanly, because if it's bad information is going to come out. But what it also enables too is that Copilot chat that you've always had. Now we're able to use that as a work function as well. So I can go in there, work with that agent, seamlessly flip back from web to work, and be able to get answers from that agent in there as well. And there's also unlocks a number of different agents, such as researchers, such as analysts. If I'm looking to do deeper tasks on analyzing data or researching, a specific company, that I'm going to be talking to, maybe on a sales pitch, it's able to help you there. But where I would say I find so much of the return on this is around, the applications that I'm using every day. For me, one that I can't show that I wanted to bring up is travel quite a bit. So throughout the week, sometimes there's emails that come through. I have a prompt that runs every Monday that says, hey, I was out this last week. Can you please prioritize emails I haven't responded to 1 through 5 based on their urgency? Anyone that's over 3 urgency, can you please start a draft for me? So that saves me hours of time going through emails, prioritizing what do I need to look back when, but start thinking about ideas like that if something that's affected you. But again, just one example of where, Copilot can come in and be extremely helpful. But let's take a quick look at some of this in action. I'm sorry for the odd transition on this side, but this is what you're going to see, if you log into your Copilot chat version. And as I mentioned, we're just going to do something really brief here, so we're not getting overwhelmed. But this is the web on the Copilot chat on this side. If we flip to work, this is where I'm going to be looking at internal documentation for myself. But let's start on the work side. I like to start on just like fun little things to get, better understanding. Please don't tell my wife I did this, but I actually use Copilot to plan, my honeymoon. So do something fun like this to get more familiar with this, right? And understand how we're parsing up this prompt. I'm telling, hey, I'm taking my wife on a honeymoon. Please give me these recommendations of the best restaurant, hotels, and activities, and filter this by best to worst, right? So very specifically what I'm looking at, place the required outcome I want on this side, and let's see what it goes through and gets back, right? So as that runs, let's just take a look on the side. And where I want to point out on the side as this goes through and looks, this one's obviously, you can see, as using a little bit from TripAdvisor. I can specify if I don't like a source, say I want you to exclude this or these different ones. But again, you can see the different rankings that it's had for hotels, best restaurants I can go through. So again, use something silly. I know it's just Valentine's Day. If you're looking to do date night with the wife, the husband, you're looking to find something to do with your kids or activities, this is a really fun way to do it. Not saying this can't be used for business things. If I'm looking for different data, I can always go through and do that. Again, just don't use your own data on this side. But again, something really cute, really quick to be able to go through and look at this. And again, if I ever want to refine results, I can from there. But let me point out just a couple agents on this side, and just because they take more time to run, you can see on this left-hand side the researcher and analyst agents that I had. So this is one where, if I wanted a project update because I'm flipped over to the work side, I can. If I want to make sure there's anything for a meeting prep I need to do, I can go through and do that. Or if I had customer data that I want to go through in a customer brief, I can do this. It just takes a little bit more time to run, is the only reason we're not showing it on today. But then the analyst function, right, that's where I'm looking at specific data, right? This is where I would upload Excel files and have breakdowns on territory performances, or have information on different client IXI data. All that's where we'd come from this analyst, right? So really nice little tools inside of there, but they also can go through and select new agents. These are either ones that I can create on this side. So this is kind of different creations where we're going and talk about Copilot Studio, where you can create those, or I can look at all the pre-built agents, right? And why I want to point this one out is there's different learning frontiers, but also prompt coach. So again, if we're going through and saying, hey, for our AI readiness, we're not in a great place, this is a great agent to add inside there. It will look at your prompts, say, this is what you're doing really well. This is how you can get better results from this. And that way it informs kind of your decision making and your ability to interact with this tool. So there's a lot built in here. Again, just know we can talk a little bit more when else started. But I went through and showed you the web and showed you a couple of agents. Let's look at the work side of things. For me, a lot of times it's a lot about, like I mentioned before, some email follow-up, but let's see if we can pull some different emails. So let's say we have a meeting with Elena and I want to pull what are the last 5 emails from her, and can we summarize the content and see if there's any open items. So we'll let this run through. Again, this is coming and pulling from my Outlook. Let's sort of go through and generating these insights. In a second, we'll see it. I have a sneaking suspicion it's going to talk a lot about a webinar that's coming up on this side. But again, if you have a meeting that's coming up quickly, you want to make sure, hey, is everything open with this customer? Great way to get a summary of this side and see. So again, we can see the last summaries that are open on this one, see if there's any open items, logo options, different things of that nature, right? All talking about a different session. There's a lot of different ways to go through and do this. We always can refine this. And if I wanted to, I could start an email from here to make sure, hey, we get these responses that they're looking for. As you can see, those last 4 overall watch items, different earnings things that we're looking for on this side, so I know what's coming up in this meeting. So great prep tool, also a great way to go through and do different recaps on this side. But let me actually pull up an Outlook email. Just give me 1 second on this side. Once we're inside Outlook, right, we obviously can respond to emails, but we also can start from the very scratch in the very beginning on this one. So a couple different ways to access Copilot. We can always hit over here, hit draft and change settings. Or if I'm in here, I can just hit / and typically that would open up. I'll just hit the little button instead. But really would say, hey, how do I want this email to say? How do I want it to look? And then I can customize drafts more from here. I will say over time, right, it's going to go through and give me more information on this side. It's been a couple years that I have this tool, so it's going to come through more on my sentiment. And you're going to see the same, right, as you work through this together. But let me draft with Copilot here. Just 1 second. And let me go put in here this quick little prompt. Let's say on this side, I want to meet up with one of my colleagues, Kelly. Go ahead and would paste this in here on this side. And it's going to go through and start creating this email for me. It's going to pull through her calendar as well as why it's going through and searching a little bit on this. Again, for those, I know that prompt came through pretty quick. What the prompt said is, hey, I'm looking to talk about a Microsoft meeting and here's my availability, right? So again, it pulled through my availability on Monday to Tuesday. If I like this, I can keep this. If I don't like it, I can discard. What I really like here is, right, if I'm referencing a document or anything, I can view these data sources and make sure this is correct. But if I want to make it longer, I can go ahead and make it longer and go through and hit it. I will say there's also an option to create a poem on this one, which is silly, but what I think it is just there's a lot of different ways we can change tone. A lot of times what I change a tone is sometimes I can come off a little too direct. Maybe I want to make a little softer on this side so I can make it a little more casual on these ones. But as you can see, right, very quickly going through and getting these different schedules, very quickly through and recreating these emails for you. So it's a great place that you're able to start by putting in a quick prompt. It's pulled all my calendar information. It's pulled everything I'm ready to go. And now I'm able to get this schedule with Kelly and send it over. So again, and if you respond to emails, it's going to pull content from there and say, hey, this is what they're talking about. This is how I go through and get these responses, from Microsoft. So a lot of really cool things inside there. Like I said, I have an automated prompt that runs. So think about different automation that you guys could have on your side as well. But it's pretty neat stuff. But let's go back and again, we want to talk a little bit about Word and PowerPoint. I will say it's really difficult to show on a Teams meeting the Teams functionality, but for me, it's probably one of the best pieces before we drop in this Word stuff. It talks a lot about meeting notes, different things where if I'm not able to attend a meeting, I hit follow and I can see, hey, when this conversation had, is there any open items that I need to take care of, even though I, wasn't part of the conversation, or also, do a lot of summarization. But for this, I can just create a draft just by, adding words, but I also can add content from here. I have files, emails that I can reference, but let's say I want to actually go through and reference a meeting, right? So This is meeting notes that are coming from a real actual meeting that we're a part of. And if I just ask a very simple thing on this side, can I please, create an executive summary of the sales meeting? So any of those who are needing executive summaries, who are needing to go through this side, obviously on this one a little bit redundant, just because a lot of times teams can create, your teams can destroy you. But I want to show, hey, there's portions of this that we can create, right? So as you go through, hey, we talk about our protocols, highlights, different things that have changed on our side on these meeting notes, talk about all these different things that happen inside this meeting. So again, if there's someone asking, hey, what happened on our sales meeting? I need to get an update on what did you talk to about this client. If they don't have access to that follow button, I can easily send them over an executive summary and say, hey, here's everything that happens. If I don't like it, again, I can regenerate it. I can ask it specific questions to change things, or I can just go ahead and keep this draft, right? I also say, hey, it's always good to give feedback to this tool, say, yes, this is correct content, or no, this is not correct. Again, more to understand your sentiment than teaching the tool anything else, right? Make sure, hey, this is what I'm looking to get out of this. This is helpful to me. Because again, we really want to avoid that challenge of work slop, where you're sending something over that's not what we're looking to do on that side. Final thing we'll go through on this is presentation PowerPoint. I will say something I didn't do that I usually do is actually add our branding guide inside here. So for anyone who's on marketing who's struggled to have consistency across presentations, a lot of times that's the first place that I would have you start, is make sure your branded template is loaded in here. So Copilot's designer can do that. I didn't do that today just to save us some time on it learning, but I did reference a PDF document inside of here. Again, you don't have to reference a PDF. It just sometimes is going to help a little bit what you get from results. But you also can, again, add anything else. Again, change length or sentiment inside here. But let's go through and start generate this. I can talk about a couple more points. So give me just 1 second. So I'm just going to ask this to please create me a PowerPoint from this documentation. My audience, I'm letting them know, is decision makers, right, on this conversation. So I think this is a wonderful place to start, right? As I mentioned before, it usually gets about 80% of the way. And like I said, if you add your branded templates inside here, a lot of times it's going to keep those consistent brandings across this and be able to go through and make sure it's happening. Okay. So we'll just give this a little bit of time to run, but I will say no surprise that this presentation we had today had some help from Copilot. So we'll let this run just a little bit longer. And the final thing that also can do in this Copilot that we're not going to be addressing, right, is going to be Excel. Of all the applications, to be really honest with, I think Excel has the one to catch up the most on usability for everything else. I found them, and maybe that's just my role too, right? I'm sure there's someone out here who probably would disagree when you get your hands on this tool, but for me, it has a little bit more places to go when it comes to Excel on better understanding how to create formulas, how to do some different things on that side. Not to say that it's not valuable. It's just that of all these different ones, for some reason, it's not quite as far as it needs to be. Taking a little bit more time. The reason it wouldn't be a live presentation if we had one go a little bit slower than the rest. But again, for most of the times we have this going through, it creates this pretty quickly. I do address, the only reason I'm using the online application is just to ease of show on this presentation. But typically, we go through and be able to see this inside of those different downloadable applications. You have the same thing where you're able to reference those Copilot tools in the top and be able to go through and see that. Well, since this is taking a bit longer, let's go talk in the presentation and I can show back what's going on. Like I said, you got to love live presentations. There's always something that's going to happen on those ones, but just taking a little bit longer to get started. Let's go back to the slide we're looking for here. So again, very quick examples on that side. Like I said, we have a couple, live sessions that are coming up in March where they're going to spend 1 hour and 30 minutes going into the minutia of all of these different ways you're able to utilize this tool. So some pretty great things on that side. But again, just a reminder, right? These are the Copilot lineup on this side. Copilot Chat, you have already inside of your organization. Copilot for Business, for those who are SMBs, great place to get started. And Copilot for Enterprise is going to be that same tool, just for enterprise versions. As you can see, right, analogous when it comes to their current capabilities. Just know that able to do this just with a business SKU. So something to take in mind on that. So final one that we didn't talk about, we talked about briefly in there, say on agent creations, and it's separate from what we've talked about before, is Copilot Studio. So this is creating agents for a specific business process, right? So again, this is where it's going to be easy to start with those pass the butter tasks. Hey, I have a little question on this side, get those answers quickly. But let's just look at those examples from kind of a few examples from easiest to the most complex. HR help desk agent. This is actually something that my company rolled out during open enrollment last year. We put all of different HR documentation inside of this agent. And whenever anyone had a question on this, they were able to go through and ask the document, hey, how do I enroll in this benefits? Can you break down the differences between XYZ plan and this health insurance plan? It actually dropped the questions that our HR team got by 75%. So a huge reduction in the time they had to do answering these quick questions, right? And employees, I use it myself. It was accurate, right? And able to go through and really get answers quickly. So again, that's a very simple one that can be created quickly. I've seen people create it through Copilot from 365 too. So there's different ways to do this. But again, just a very simple task able to go through. As we move forward, right? A project tracker agent, right? So those who have projects, hey, what's our status report for this one? This is one that the CEO of Microsoft uses every single day when he's interacting with Copilot. So definitely one that's tried and true. Budget management agents, right? Hey, any kind of outstanding financial planning we need to do, how can this help me go through into these tasks? And then as we keep going on the right, we're going to look more advanced. And the final one is really an autonomous lead generation agent, right? So this would be something that you've set that's scraping the internet for your specified, hey, I'm looking for a company that is 50 to 100 individuals. They specialize in law, whatever the industry might be, that is looking for XYZ. Or if you're looking at in implementing different technologies or materials for organization, a great way to go do that. I've seen this also in nonprofit. If you're out there today, where it's, hey, these are our fundraisers. Who hasn't donated in these last XYZ years? Obviously a little different than lead agent. There's a lot of different ways you guys can go through and do it. Don't think this is the only thing you do, right? These are just 5 examples of where you can go through and utilize this, but these are the very specific business processes, right? And it is licensed different than all those different licenses, but not to bore you to death, we can share that. But if you're thinking about creating this, get together with the team, let's talk about it, and we can talk about how we can help support you on creating something like this for your organization. So a lot of information, right? A lot of different things. It's really like where do we even get started on this side? And our goal with Copilot, right, is to hit these different things: increase revenue, reduce risk, or gain efficiencies. And how I have a lot of different organizations I work with first is, let's have a bit of an AI council, right? So maybe we pick a person from each one of these pieces or stakeholders inside the organization, give them the tool and have them start working with this. One, why it makes sense is because they're trusted employees that we know we're not worried about, data protection, which we're going to talk about in a second, but also can start to understand, hey, I'm using it for this process and it's working really well. Is there a way I can transpose that from sales to HR or vice versa? Or, we're finding that, man, we're getting some great results in sales and marketing, but finance is not finding the help. That means we can shift where those licenses are, work deeper and say, hey, are we needing to prioritize these things in sales or prioritize these other things, right? So having that open and honest conversation, getting your skilling up, and then understanding where those business processes are the best place to start. But it also can lead you into identifying security gaps, right? So again, a little bit repetitive on the fact that we've talked a little bit of it, but in my opinion, right, the key for developing this is really the strategy within, right? Deeper development capabilities, processes that you're able to go through and supports. And I think these are the things to really consider, right? We did that business strategy. Now it talks about that transformation strategy. So this tool takes over the access controls that you currently have in place inside your Microsoft tenant. And information never leaves your Microsoft tenant, which is why I think it's one of the most important tools. However, if we don't have that governance and orchestration in place, there's some negative outcomes. One negative outcome is if we don't put guardrails, Copilot is going to go look at all documentation that person has access to. We do not want Elliot here at Pax8 getting the into our finance files to see how much everyone else makes, or why was this person on an HR leave, right? So there's some serious concerns. It also is making sure that's in place, is that it potentially could be a super search tool for a bad actor that breaks into your organization, right? If that bad actor gets a hold of that user and has a Copilot tool and they don't have guardrails, now they can see everything, right, that they have access to. So siloization, making sure those data policies are in place are what is the most important thing, right? But again, because they're not training a model, because everything is staying inside your internal organization's Microsoft Graph, this is why I feel confident saying that this is really the most secure AI tool out there, right? Again, what we're trying to avoid is those 86% of users using their own AI tool, doing God knows what they want with it. And then, that leads to that drive adoption, right? After we've done those different things in place. And I think, understanding your data protection and doing those pilot programs can happen at the same time. It's just making sure when we're going to launch this wide that everything is inside there. And also, after it's happened, we got to make sure we're continuing to monitor that. And I can tell you that's why we work with our MSPs, and why Netranom is such a good partner is because they're working to be able to make sure you can do this, right? If you go do this on your own, there's always those issues of, did we make sure the right things are protected? And that might mean that there's a change in licensing to make sure you have the right capabilities, but it's going to be well worth your time to go through and do that. I think the ancillary benefits, it just means your data is going to be better for other things as well, and make sure your protection steps up to fend off other security threats. So really bring up your security posture while adopting AI, but that's why it's so important, right? There's potential data leakage issues, DLP problems, but again, it's all there to be addressed. We just have to make sure that's in place. And a lot of times where we start there is AI readiness assessments, and then go in and start working on this hardening together. But business strategy falls together with transformation, falls together with making sure there's more security in place. But just a last piece on this side, right, with security, right? Again, Microsoft Graph, everything is inside of your Microsoft tenant. I know I keep saying that, but it's something that other AI tools aren't able to go through and do, and aren't able to easily do as natively as a Microsoft tool itself, right? Again, we need to make sure this is classified, because when it goes through and looks at the semantic index, it's making sure that everything is correct on that information as well. So your messages, file sharing, meetings, everything that's going inside there is all what's a part of this Microsoft Graph. So retention labels, sensitivity labels, make sure information isn't accidentally getting sent out. Excuse me, 1 second. Is a huge thing when it comes to utilizing Copilot. So again, the team here is here to enable you, but just make sure, right, that this is the reason to have this in place. Last time, right, we always have a rule of 3 that we have to come through and talk about these different things on what this means, but it's built with the foundational security of Microsoft. It's a comprehensive approach to security, privacy, and top of that, you can layer on all of your other capabilities on, discovery, Copilot usage. That one I really like, because it also can inform you with those business decisions. Who's using this tool, right? Are they using it in a manner that we have set out in our fair use policy? It holds people accountable, because a lot of times the users, as we all know, can be the biggest security risk. But secure access, right? Assess their data risks, make sure it is set up in security controls, make sure everything is there. And again, finally, it's really make sure we're governing that AI usage. But again, we want anytime anymore I talk to organizations, we forget how important our data is. Really, your data is your organization in conjunction with the people that you work with. So making sure that's secure, making sure it's protected, and making sure we've governing this correctly is incredibly important, right? We don't want a tool that is built to make your company's life better, worse, by having something like this happen, right? I'm not familiar with any companies that had a major incidents besides that, I think we talked about in the UK a little bit earlier about someone setting out some data, but who wants to be the case study on the news, right? It's obviously something that impacts your relationship with your customers, which is exactly the opposite of what we're looking to do here. So not trying to be scary, but I think this is like a great place to understand that this is going to help you regardless of Copilot in improving your security posture. But when you're putting Copilot together, with what you're doing on your data, needs to happen, right? It's a non-negotiable, in my opinion, to go through and make sure this is protected. But you still give you time to run your AI security groups, your champion groups, go do those different things on that side to make sure that you're able to utilize this great tool. But I want to leave with one thing that's not so scary to say, hey, I've been utilizing this tool for over 2 years. It saves me a minimum of 30 minutes a day. I know that doesn't seem like a crazy amount of time, but what that equates to is over 3 weeks of work, right? A year. I know there's a lot of people that I have 3 weeks more vacation, 3 weeks more with their kids. So I was able to save us some time on that side, able to make sure our employees are feeling better while we're able to drive more results, become more efficient, and reduce risk by doing these different things. I think it's gonna be a win for everyone, right? Remember, our bar for efficiencies is around $1 a day, a work day on that one. So I think we can get this from our technology, but I really want to thank you for spending time. I know we went a little long with our interview, our process there in the middle. Again, if I could just ask a favor of you, would be to fill out this survey on this QR code. But while you're filling that out, I'd love to take some Q&A from everyone in the crowd to answer some questions there might be.
Awesome. Thanks, Elliot. Do you know if the PowerPoint ended up showing up or not? Just wanted to show them that quick example if it worked. And if not, that's fine. Actually, did want to let you all know that, oh, great.
It did, but something's not pulling over on that side. So
Okay.
I'm going to say shame on Copilot on that one.
Yeah. No worries. But I did want to let everyone know I will be sending out later on a recording of the session. And also, Elliot has been gracious enough to give me examples of like these launch demos that you can do a demo on Excel using Copilot in Excel. We have Teams, and I think you might have given me one for PowerPoint. So just some different options that I can send you all out through that email as well. So just be on the lookout for that too. And then he had also mentioned about some longer classes. If there's, you want to dive more into Copilot on something specific, I know that they have an upcoming hour-long session in March for specifically nonprofits. So I know, and we got some nonprofits leaders in here. I think that would really benefit from that.
Just clarify that there's an earlier one in March coming up pretty quick. That's good for everyone. That's going to be introduction in Copilot. It's going to go deeper into this one, and then there's going to be a session a little later on that's specifically geared towards nonprofits. So take advantage of either of those sessions. Again, it's going to be going through for an hour and a half. Just that brief section we had in the middle, looking at all those different functions. So even if you haven't started using Copilot, it's a great place to get jumping off on. Hey, these are some great ideas where I can get started and interact with tools better.
Awesome. And I will be sending you all just the reminders for those in that email. So let's get to, we got a couple more minutes. Let's get to some Q&A. And so again, if you have a question, feel free to put it in the chat and we'll get to it. But a question that I have for you, Elliot, is so what data does Copilot have access to and what can't it see?
Yeah, so I mean, again, this is where it depends on those security controls, right? So obviously, the head of your organization is going to have a lot more data to see, but it's all grounded in your Microsoft data, right? So natively, that tool is going to pull from things like SharePoint, OneDrive, Outlook, different things of that nature. So depending on what your access controls in, that's where you're going to see on that side. You can also set up third-party data connectors. For example, I have one that's connected to Salesforce, right? It's read-only, so it's not endangering that data going anywhere else. And again, this is a user trained to model, but no, hey, if I'm using third-party tools, there's definitely a line around the block of integrations that are going to be coming in there, but it's grounded mostly on your Microsoft data once it's out of the box. So a lot of options, but it's all good because it's all secured inside that tenant. So again, why it's so important with security.
Awesome. All right, and I think we have time for just one more question. So how accurate is Copilot and how should users validate its outputs?
Yes, so the hallucination rate, which is just, hey, I got the information wrong, is incredibly small. Where it goes awry is if there's bad data on that side. What I really like about Microsoft Copilot is if you saw inside there when I was sending that email, it said reference document that I did. So if you're using the web version on your Copilot chat and started, it's going to reference, hey, this is where I pulled this information from. That way you can check and see, is this a reputable source? Is this correct? Same thing as, when you're using that Copilot to, like, I reference a document, but if you're just asking a prompt, it'll say, hey, I pulled it from these documents that you have access to, so you can know that it's accurate. So are there times where there can be that work slop? Absolutely. A lot of times it's caused more by bad data and human error than anything that's going on with the tool. So again, why it's so important to get that data cleanliness and understand prompting better. And I'll send you over just a prompting document as well if you want to share the email, just to get better confused. But use that prompting coach, and that can eliminate a lot of the hallucinations.
That's great. Yeah, I'll definitely, I'll have a bunch to send out to everyone. So I'm super excited. That way you guys get a little takeaway, a little goodie bag from this webinar. Elliot, thank you so much for joining us today. I've learned quite a bit just on how Copilot can help me be more productive in my emails. I'm using Outlook and PowerPoint and Word too. So this is great. And everyone, thank you so much for attending today. I hope that you found this as insightful as I did. And again, be on the lookout for an email from aatkins@netranom.com. And if you have any questions, feel free to respond back to the email with the recording. That goes straight to me. I'd be happy to answer any additional questions you may have, or if you have a question for Elliot from PAX 8, I'd be happy to send that to him as well. So again, thank you all so much for joining us. Elliot, thank you so much, and we will see you at the next one.